Hello, Manchester. I'm Jon Hopwood, and welcome once again to Ward13. My guest today is Jocelyn Heaney, a very fine poet, a writer. She lives in Los Angeles, but you were born in New Hampshire, weren't you, Jocelyn?
That's correct, John. I was born in I was born in Burlington, Vermont, but I've been in New Hampshire. We moved to New Hampshire when I was 2.
And so you're a Mount Vernon girl.
That's correct. I love Mount Vernon.
You know, what surprises me about you being from Mount Vernon, did you go to Milford High?
No, I did not.
Oh, that's right.
I was spared that, yeah.
Okay. Is that people that live in Mount Vernon, you really don't have much, let's say, truck with Manchester, do you? You're more located towards Nashua?
Yes, we're very oriented towards Nashua. Manchester, to me, was just factories and something you sort of passed by on the way to a field trip to Concord or something.
But you had a very famous resident in Mount Vernon, didn't you, when you were a child? Linda Kasabian, the Charles Manson murder. Well, she claimed that she didn't commit murder. Isn't there a story of that about Mount Vernon, from the Mount Vernon days, about Linda that...
There sure is, John, and I'd be glad to tell you about it. It was about 1976 or 75, and Linda Kasabian was a member of the Manson family who was there on the night of the murders. She drove the car to the Tate house, and I believe she also drove the car on the second night of murders. But she was not charged with anything because she testified against Charles Manson.
Right, she states evidence.
So... the strange thing is Mount Vernon is an extremely tiny community, and Linda Kasabian lived there because originally she was from Milford, I guess. But after all her madness in California, she settled in Mount Vernon, and she was living on a farm on Old Milford Road. And my best friend at the time lived just down the street from her, and Linda had a daughter named Tanya, who
some people believed was Charles Manson's daughter.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. I don't know. But Rhea was friends with Tanya, so we would often go to Tanya's house for various things. So
you knew Tanya, who might have been Charles Manson's daughter.
Right. The other irony, I should say, before I go further, was the other person who lived in Mount Vernon at that time was another best friend of mine, whose name was Jimmy Van Houten, and his cousin was Leslie Van Houten, also of the Manson family. So it was a very strange coincidence that this small, bucolic town should have
two Manson family members.
Two people. So the Van Houtens were very interested in distancing themselves from that.
But let's get to we only have a half hour.
All right.
Jocelyn.
So anyhow, I was pretty much strictly forbidden to. My mother did not like me to go to Linda's house, even though she knew I was with Rhea. Tanya was kind of, the Rohrbarkers, my friend Rhea's family. They took care of Tanya. They let her spend the night when her mother was in jail, or when there was not enough heat in the house in the winter. So she had a hard upbringing. Anyway, go ahead.
Didn't they have a smokehouse?
Oh, well, I'm getting to that.
Traditional
I have to give you a little background first, and I'll try to make it brief. But I knew about Helter Skelter. Being only 8 or 9, I knew about Helter Skelter not only because my mother read the book, because she was a true crime fanatic, and my sister and I used to open up the book and look at the page of Charles Manson with his crazy eyes, and then we'd scream and throw the book across the bedroom. We'd have this game like how long you can look at it before you scream. Anyway, I also was a huge Beatles fan at the time, and I had dissected the mythology of the White Album, and I knew that, Charles Manson had sort of been obsessed with the White Album and made all these crazy interpretations from the songs. So I was very aware of that. I was very aware of the Beatles connection because Beatles were very important to me. So anyway.
Important to all of us.
That's correct. So anyway, it was very confusing to me because I realized, it's just a song. For example, the song Piggies is just a song. Obviously, it wasn't meant to advocate the murder of rich people or political people. I was aware of that. So anyway, one day I went to the Rohrbarkers' house to see Tanya, and I was feeling kind of nervous because I knew I shouldn't be there.
Right.
So I walked in, and I was really nervous, and I was looking around, and it was a very strange, very ramshackle kind of place with, like, there was a Christmas tree it was in the middle of summer, and they still had an artificial Christmas tree, and Tanya was a very sweet kid, and I was talking about Fonzie and Happy Days a lot because I was so nervous. I didn't know what else to talk about. I'm like, did you see Happy Days last night? What about Fonzie? You know. And anyway, at one point, Linda came out of the kitchen, and then I saw her, and I knew I'd seen her picture in Helter Skelter. So she was extremely polite. She offered us cookies, and I declined. And I was just a little bit too, afraid. So she was like, yeah, want to come outside and see the pony? We have a pony. And I said, okay. We had horses. I wasn't too interested. I had my own pony, So she leads us through the kitchen and through this little shed, off the kitchen. And we go out and we see the pony, and there's the pony, we pet the pony and everything. So we turn around and we're coming back in the house, and we pass through that little shed. Yeah. And she stops. And
Linda Kasabian
stops. And keep in mind, she's with children who are about 9 and 8.
Yeah.
Okay. And she says to us with a kind of like smirk, would you like to see something kind of gross? And I remember what went through my head was, be polite and say yes, which was crazy because I was also
there was fear?
I was fearful. I was fearful, but it was also the weird way I was raised, which was always to be polite in somebody else's house. Right. So I said, and Rhea looked very stricken, like, I don't want to see something gross. So she opened the door. There were these long, tall doors. She opened the door, and there were 3 slaughtered pigs hanging on hooks in the smokehouse.
Now, did she do the slaughtering?
I believe she did. In this case, anyway, because...
Did anybody ever in Mount Vernon see her running around with knives?
That's another story. But at this point, she said, I was completely... I could not speak because the Beatles were going through my head. Piggies was going through my head. But wait, she didn't kill anybody. But wait, it's just a song. But wait, what does this mean? And she just shrugged her shoulders and she said, I know it's sad, but what can we do? We like bacon. And then I proceeded to leave the house as soon as possible, get on my bicycle, and ride as fast as I could home.
Well, talking about crime in Los Angeles, John, can we have that first picture? You won't believe what's happened in L.A.
Does it connect to this?
Look at Cap'n Cork. You see the police cruiser?
Oh, God.
There was a robbery last night
at
the Cap'n Cork.
That's a different Cap'n Cork, though, from the one by my house. But anyway, okay, a robbery at the Cap'n Cork.
Wait, no, that's the Cap'n Cork at your house, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know if it is, but it no matter. It's a Cap'n Cork. So what happened?
I think a strange alcoholic woman. It's getting late.
No. Okay. So,
do we want to talk any about
our obsession, our mutual obsession? This is a mutual obsession, by the way.
Why don't we go into should we go into the sharks instead?
I don't know. It's up to you. If you want to go for Soo Lion or the sharks, either way.
Why don't we? We've only got about 20 minutes left.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us, Jocelyn? You're a member of PETA.
Yes, I am. I'm an animal rights activist. Yeah.
It's PETA, not
PETA.
PETA.
Everyone calls it PETA, even though PETA is the logical thing. But I'm an animal rights activist.
Just like vegan would be the logical thing, but it's
It's vegan.
Oh, it is vegan. Vegan because of vegetable.
Yeah. No veg. Okay, so yeah,
and you've been obsessed with sharks since Jaws.
When I first saw Jaws at the Wilton Town Hall
John,
Theater,
can we get that picture, the poster of Jaws?
When I first saw Jaws at the Wilton Town Hall Theater in 1975 with my father, I had heard it was such a disgusting movie, worse than The Exorcist, that I stuck a lunch bag down the front of my shirt so I would have a bag to throw up in case it got really gross. That movie changed my life. Ever since that movie in 1975, I read everything about sharks. I was a shark for Halloween. I had the Jaws costume. And I began dreaming about them obsessively until I was about in my mid-30s. I dreamt about them.
But now constantly. You actually went on an adventure in South Africa,
That's
didn't
right.
you? Do you want to tell the audience about it?
Well, it was terrific. I went to South Africa to be part of Apex Expedition Tours, which is led by a guy named Chris Fallows, who's a naturalist and a shark expert and a shark researcher. And I wanted to go with him because I wanted to go with someone who really knew and cared about sharks. I didn't want to be this kind of thing. I'd heard these horror stories about these shark expeditions where people are getting wasted and, putting strippers in the cage. And, all these kinds of stuff. Getting drunk. It was like a big party atmosphere. I didn't want to do that. So
do you want to? You have some videos that you brought.
Yeah. So
Jon,
anyway,
can we see the first video? Now, what's this?
I'm in the cage. The visibility is a little poor, but I'm in the cage right now. We do some cage diving. So you see
now
the
that's
bait.
What do they use as bait?
Oh, fish heads mostly.
Are we going to see the?
The shark should come soon. I'm sorry, it's not good resolution, but the water there is not very clear. But it's amazing.
What does it take for somebody that watched Jaws and What Happens to Richard Dreyfuss to go in and get into that cage? These are these great white sharks?
Yeah, these are white sharks. Okay, here he comes.
How big is that shark? 15 feet?
He's less than 15 feet. It's probably maybe like 12 feet.
The
biggest one we saw was 15. In South Africa, they tend not to be as huge as, in Mexico, they're like, in California, they get very big. But here, this guy's about maybe, 12 feet or maybe 14.
But that is a
maybe
great white
feet.
shark.
Yeah, he's very uninterested in us. We're watching. We're snorkeling inside the cage, watching him. As you can, there's the cage. And it was just a thrill,
Was this something you'd wanted to do for
lifetime? Because the dreams I had about them were spiritual. It wasn't just Jaws. It was just, there was something, I really think I was a shark in another life.
So you see a shark as, eyes brought up to think of it as a shameful, grotesque, disgusting predator. In German it's the Heilfisch, the hellfish.
Yeah, they get a bad rap. When you see them in the wild...
Oh, Jon, if we get a chance, can you show it's the last video? I think it's number 5. Is it the one with the Quint?
Quint?
Yeah.
Are you gonna do the Quint thing? You should show the breaching video. That's the best video.
Well, I was gonna have Robert Shaw.
How much time do we have?
We got about 50. When we get a chance, can we see the breach? Well, I have them 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. See, there we are, kind of perching our feet on the cage because it was a little freaky putting your feet on the bottom of the cage because you never knew where they were going to turn up. But 2 or 3 of them would come around, and some of these videos are short because we're snorkeling, so we keep coming up for air or. You're only down there as long as you can snorkel.
So do you feel any danger?
No, it was magic. It was just pure magic. They're so beautiful that it's just incredible. I mean, maybe if one had charged the cage or something like that, but they weren't interested. They just came and they circled, extremely cautious animals.
Are they really, something I read said that they were shy. Is that true?
They are. They don't just go for the bait. They were like, circle, circle. They want to make sure. Okay, here's the breach video. We went out to watch the sharks hunt seals. We saw 17 breach events in one day.
What is a breach event?
A breach is when the sharks...
Oh, there he is.
You'll see.
Yep.
Watch breaching coming out of the water.
Where the goal is.
And they're coming out of the water to attack the seal.
Right, and it's just ultimate acrobatics. So you'll see this soon. It's incredible to see.
That's a seal that over on the left of our right, but to the left of the shark.
I mean, you can see people's reactions. It's the most thrilling thing to see in nature.
Is that the seal that just went over his back?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the seal's doing everything he can. They're acrobats too.
I mean, but you see how large that animal is, the shark too, and what deft movements he has, considering how huge he is. I mean, it's just,
How many people were out there?
A few boats at a time come to watch. Some drag seal decoys. Oh, look at that mouth! Isn't that fabulous?
I don't know. It's scary.
Oh, they're just like gods in the sea. I mean, you look at them and you think, I would like to found a religion around this animal.
Well, are there any cultures where they are treated as like tribal gods?
Yes, Hawaii.
Totem.
Hawaii, they're ancestor spirits. That's why it's very controversial to kill sharks in Hawaii because they are considered ancestor spirits. I think they are my ancestor spirits, in fact. And this was just one of the thrilling days of my life, no question.
How many people were with you on the expedition?
Only about 13. They keep the boats pretty small. Again, if you ever want to do it, it's Apex Predators in South Africa in Simonstown. They are Chris and Monique Fallows. They're a terrific pair. You've seen them on Shark Week. You know.
Yes, he is.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they're always on Shark Week and stuff.
Got
But they're just the real deal. You know, it's not a Yahoo type of extreme sports thing. It's a real thing.
Or her, I think it's a female shark, I'm not...
Yeah, so this hunt just goes on and on, but finally the seal sort of disappears. Sometimes you'd see clouds of blood. Sometimes the seals would get away. Sometimes the shark would, come closer to the boat. It was all just...
Did you see any kills?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We came up to one, and there was just blood pouring out of the shark's mouth. Just endless blood, and then he just sunk beneath the surface. It was amazing.
I think you might have him now.
And that doesn't...
I think he's got him, yeah.
I'm just in awe. It's like seeing God. That's all I can say. And it may
But it's a
sound
very
crazy.
bloody, primitive god.
That seal did very
But the
well.
way they move in the water, and one came close up to the boat,
The first...
nose out of the
Avoidance
air,
knackered
and
him
just
out.
kind of looked at us, and then fell back beneath the water. And it was I was so glad to be alive at that moment to see that.
Is this the other video, John?
It might be the same one, but shot
No, I think
differently.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the same one.
Sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah, this might have been the first breach we saw. We were a little further away. But then the birds will come down once the seal is dead, and they'll take the entrails and fly away with the entrails.
Of the
Nick, you've been doing
seal?
this too long, man.
It's like a taffy pull between the two. And they're just
jeez.
they're rising up with the organs pulling.
But what does this mean to you? Nature?
I can't.
Nature
All
at
I
its
know,
rawest?
I was transformed. It was like I had to see them. It was like a destined meeting, I think. And
So how would you, once again, you're a member of PETA.
But PETA doesn't-
You're an animal rights activist. I know you and your sister are both very much animal rights activists. Your sister was, I remember her picketing a park, one of those aquatic parks
I do
in
that
the
too.
Bay Area when they brought the walruses in, which do not survive captivity.
yes.
Yeah.
And I've been protesting SeaWorld. I protest the circus. I did a benefit against shark finning.
But
How
is this different than
Because this is
seeing
nature.
a bullfight, which people say that's
Absolutely
the
different.
Mithraic cult.
Absolutely different.
Because it's man.
Here's the thing. That's nature. That's how they survive. That's the way nature set it up. It doesn't mean it's pretty or it's Disney or anything, but that's a whole lot different to me than someone going out and hunting, there's no, the only reason people
mean
hunt.
sport hunting.
People hunt. It's no sport because the animal doesn't. A sport usually should be when both people know the rules of the game and they're semi-equally matched. And people who call hunting a sport, I think that's ridiculous. And I also think that there's no reason after we have eroded their habitat, use them for experiments, do all these horrible things to them. It's like, then we have to we also have the right to just go out in the woods and shoot them if we feel like it. And I find that morally bankrupt way of thinking. And I'm really against hunting. And I think most people do it for a crisis of masculinity and nothing more. I think it's mostly that. I think that's what it's driven by. Because if you want to talk about deer overpopulation, you can talk about other ways, People enjoy it. And they can't just say, yeah, I enjoy killing things. So they have to say, like, it's a sport. It's a blood sport.
Well, getting to the subject of violence, where you're making a distinction between the violence that's inherent in nature and then man, Homo sapiens sapiens, the human being who knows the
Right.
consciousness, actually as a bullfight, like my brother actually saw one in Spain when he was stationed there, and it's disgusting
It is
how
disgusting.
they do everything to drain the energy of the bull. He was disgusted by it. But talking about violence, you're a writing teacher in Los Angeles. You teach creative writing and English in college, and you've taught some students with PTSD, our own
correct.
warriors. What can you tell us about, as a creative writing teacher, this new technique. It's called mindfulness. What is mindfulness? We've only got about 8 or 9 minutes. If you could just briefly describe what mindfulness and how that can be applied to writing and how that can actually be used to help, like the soldiers coming back that have PTSD and other problems.
Well, I think the first thing about mindfulness is it makes you aware of your breath and your body. And
is mindfulness a psychiatric or psychoanalytic technique?
I think it's something that probably came from Buddhism, but now, psychology and Buddhism are so sort of interwoven that mindfulness is now becoming this term that you hear everywhere.
And it's part of cognitive behavioral therapy.
I think it is very much so. And I think, most of us live in our heads. Most of us forget to breathe. And part of the stress that we feel and all the anxiety comes from this disconnection from the body. So getting connected to breath, getting out of the head, using simple things to become more aware, like walking meditation. For example, Thich Nhat Hanh is the best teacher on this. The Vietnamese monk, all his videos are on YouTube, you can watch. I think for vets, it's really good because it keeps them out of the head. Now, the problem with it, the reason people resist...
By the head, you mean ego.
Just the head ego, where everything's going around, all of that madness. But I think that...
And what does it do? By being able to center yourself, do you put yourself in a different relationship with just not society, but the universe, with what's what's outside of you?
I think so. I think that you have a different... we can get into the concept of no self. That takes more time, I think. But I think for the first thing is to just get out of the head and into the body. Now, the problem is a lot of people don't want to be in their body because when they're in their body, they start to feel the pain and the anxiety more because sometimes when you're in your head, the madness of the monkey mind is keeping you away from feeling anything. So being in the body sometimes is a little scary because it means that you're coming into a bigger consciousness, of yourself. But mindfulness and breathing and welcoming in painful emotions, learning to deal with painful emotions, not suppress them, that's also part of mindfulness.
Now, you had one student that was a combat veteran of many tours who... can you describe what it was like to teach somebody? Because obviously you've never been in the military. It doesn't matter. Right. But what was it like to teach that you had a particularly what would you say, rich, teacher?
I've had many PTSD students with PTSD, and some of them, I teach Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, so that book elicits a lot of issues. For some people, it's very healing, but part of that healing is painful because and scary because it's bringing up a lot of stuff. But I think with mindfulness, they need techniques that keep them out of thinking and that are beyond talking. Because even some of my vets have said, after a while, just sitting around talking to other vets is not enough. My story gets boring. The vets sometimes lie and makes up worse stories. It's not enough to just talk therapy. So you want to get into breath work. You want to get into some other kind of consciousness. You want to get into some other way of experiencing, and healing from these things.
So you're actually using art as a healing. You're not a psychoanalyst. You're not licensed to do that. But just the power of art. How does art have the power to heal? Why do you think that? That's a really good
question. I think because...
what does art do that another therapy wouldn't do?
I think that if I can speak about literature, it can give people a sense of someone else has experienced this. Someone else has this perspective. They've really articulated it in a way that I felt but could never put into words. And so they feel less lonely and less isolated in that experience.
And I remember in the beginning of the Iraq War, of Bush's war, that... when they finally were starting to, really they recognized PTSD, not after the fact, like the tragedy of the Vietnam veterans. They were using the World War I poets, the war poets like Siegfried Sassoon, and how much that helped these soldiers that went through the horrific experience of combat. And I think what you just said, part of it's I'm not unique. in my experience. The
Right.
shame, the fear. Hemingway in our time wrote a great short story where the guy comes back a little late and he lies and he can't tell anybody what happened to him. So he's just totally alienated. But so through literature, you're able to. They're not so you get rid of the self-abnegation
Right,
of what
right.
happened.
Absolutely.
That they're not alienated anymore. You're what are you doing? Like recreating their connections with society?
I think that's probably pretty ambitious to do in a 16-week class, but I think,
But you're helping.
But I think I try
Yeah.
to really acknowledge. I try to encourage them to talk about their experiences if they want to, and I try to really value their experiences and also say none of us here have ever been through anything like this, so we understand how difficult it is to integrate back into society. And I really try to just honor and respect what they have to say. That's the best I can do, I think.
Well, Jocelyn, you're going to be leaving for Los Angeles
I know.
In a few days. Do you have any parting words for the Granite State?
It's so beautiful. It's so green.
And you told me that you think that you're going to come back here,
Maybe one day, because I grew up here and I grew up in such a beautiful place, and I find it extremely healing place. It's
a very
it's
unique
so-
state, isn't it?
It is, and
In
it's
a way,
so
it kind of
beautiful.
reminds me some ways of California, and there's a
Wow.
certain freedom here that doesn't exist in other states. But we can talk. I'll have you back on the show, either Skyping.
Oh, great! I'd
But
love to.
it's time. It's that time. It's time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for visiting here at Ward 13. Good night.